Okay, so, hi ho, welcome back to another Creepypasta story video. Today, Creepypasta I'm going to be reading is called The Girl in the Blue Dress, but before I get into it, I do want to say a few things. First off, the video is a one take, so if you're doing me stumble, mumble, fumble, and mess on my words, I'm sorry, this is a one take. And second thing, I do want to say, please consider using code GOONS at gamersubs.gg. It's code GOONS, and you can use that to get 10% off at checkout. Okay, so outside of that, let's get into it. This Creepypasta is called The Girl in the Blue Dress. Hello there. For those of you who are in Australia, good evening. For those who aren't, good whatever time of day it is. I should be sleeping right now since I have work at 6 a.m. tomorrow, but I haven't been sleeping anyway. So I thought I might as well share the hell I've been going through with all you lovely people. As with many individuals, and myself especially, I am a fan of all the creepypastas that circulate on the internet. You all know that a lot of it is entirely fictional, but what I'm going to share with you tonight is true, and I can't stress that enough. Actually, I don't think I care, because really, all I need right now is to share my experiences with people who won't dismiss them immediately. So, here goes. As I said before, I live in Australia, Western Australia. In fact, I live in a mining town called Kathara, and if you're aware of the current mining boom in Western Australia, you can imagine that there will be a ton of work here. High-paying work at that. As for me, I started working at Kathara Airport as a bag chucker for Qantas at the beginning of the year with $14,000 after tax a week. Or $1,400 after tax a week. I'm pretty much set to start university next year, and I'm 18 by the way. For that kind of cash available, people from everywhere flock to Kathara to get a piece of the action. Well, and those people would be my leading hand supervisor, who I'll call Phil. I started working with Phil 2 weeks after I first started, and we had a ton of things in common. We were both smokers, and we both listened to heavy metal, and we were both massive stoners back in the day. Back in the day refers to when we didn't have to get drug tested to work, just to name a few. Since I was a local, I had my own friends, which I had made over the years, that I usually just hung out with. And although Phil was 23, it didn't stop us from hanging out together occasionally. Right now, though, he would have to be either my closest friend or my worst enemy. About 10 weeks ago, me and Phil organized a week annual leave holiday, and cheap tickets to Busselton via Perth. Sometimes it's really good working for Qantas. Since Phil moved from Busselton originally, and Busselton is another town in Western Australia, which is down south near Perth, he knew the people and the place well. His sister Sam owned a house that was close to the beach. Every night was a piss up where we hit the bars and clubs and joined the illegal bonfires that are always there. One night on the way back to Sam's house from the bar, we got into the topic of paranormal. Since it was Wednesday, we were still fairly sober, but in the mood enough to talk about scary shit. I will say this now, I'm a very cynical person, or perhaps was a cynical person. I had never had a paranormal experience in my whole life. I am close to being an atheist, and I enjoy working /x/ because imagination is a virtue that I find very respectable in a person. Phil decided to let slip to me a special quality about himself, that he was in tune with the paranormal. I told him he was a blank, and that people who believe in that shit are attention seekers. He wasn't offended at this, but instead smiled and let out a small chuckle, and he looked towards the moon. "Would you like me to prove it to you?" he asked me. I told him if he could try if he really wanted to, but he was going to have to try hard. At that, this is the first time I heard about the girl in the blue dress. It sounds a bit cliche, doesn't it? After telling him so, he told me to look at why it was indeed so cliche. The innocence of a child is a sacred thing, and paranormal experiences involving children are definitely more distressing, I would imagine. The story of the girl in a blue dress takes place when Phil was 14. Him, Sam, and a single mother moved into a house selling for relatively cheap on the market. Of course, the house was so cheap because a man murdered his wife and daughter in their beds there. Unknown to his family at the time, he told me that this first night he slept there, he saw a girl with a blue dress standing at the end of his bed, being his first paranormal experience. He thought he was dreaming. After covering his head for 5 minutes, racing to the light switch, and finding nothing inside his room, he dismissed it as a nightmare and went back to sleep. The next 2 years of his life were prominent with sightings of the girl in the blue dress, usually with Phil catching sight of her in the edges of his vision. When he was 17, he rode home from a friend's house at around 10 p.m., while instinctively looking back to see the smoke he ditched behind him had caught on his hoodie. He saw her standing there, completely visible in the dark night. He fought the urge to look away, intent on keeping his eyes on her so she would not disappear. Unfortunately, at that time, Phil was on his bike, and he went sideways as he struck a pothole. He quickly got up to catch her again, but she was gone. Then he felt an icy hand on his shoulder, and turned to find her face inches away from his, somehow illuminated in the night to the point where he could not see anything but her. He held her gaze and asked her what she wanted from him. "It's okay," she said. "What is?" "It's okay. I don't remember it. Thank you." Then she vanished. All he could see after was just darkness. After recounting his experience to me, he could see I wasn't convinced. "I'll tell you what," he said. "Sam has a Ouija board. We used to fuck around with it at the mate's house. You want to try it?" I told him that as soon as we got to Sam's house, we should break it out. That was a bad idea. Sam's boyfriend, who I won't name for my own reasons, and with more on that later, wanted to try it too. He was a non-believer as much as I was, and wasn't keen to talk to the dead much. Still, he had nothing else to really do, as Sam was at a friend's house for the night. Phil brought out the Ouija board and set it up. I've got to be honest, I was a little nervous, because I had heard so much about Ouija boards. I was particularly nervous about how certain Phil was that something would happen. Once it was set up, we each put 2 fingers on a planchette. Before anyone could make a suggestion, Phil spoke out loud. "Are there any spirits here we can talk to? Any spirits that'll be willing to talk to us?" The planchette made its way over to yes. "Can we speak to Gil de Ras?" The planchette didn't move. "Who the fuck is Gil de Ras?" I asked him. "Why don't you ask him?" He smiled at me. "Okay, who are you, Mr. Gilles de Ras?" The planchette slowly and surely started to move. It spelled out Baron, then Rapist, and finally Murderer. "This is fucking stupid, dude," said Sam's boyfriend. "You obviously know who he is, so you're moving this thing." "Okay then," said Phil. "Ask him something that me and Gavin, and I'm Gavin, could not possibly know." He sat there for a second, then said out loud, "What was my great-great-grandmother's first name?" The planchette slowly moved out the letters ALIC. When it hit the C, he jumped backwards from the table and screamed the most real, terrified scream I have ever heard. His face was white as fucking powder. "How the fuck did you know my fucking grandmother was named fucking Alice?" "I didn't. Man, I told you this shit works. What are you doing?" Phil now had fear in his eyes. His sister's boyfriend had just gotten a fucking meat cleaver out of the kitchen and was coming towards us with it. "Chill the fuck out, man," I pleaded with him. "I'm gonna ask you again," he said slowly. "How did you fucking know?" Phil said carefully, "Sam told me." "Sam doesn't even fucking know that." "You bitch, what the fuck is this shit?" He threw the cleaver at the board and missed. Then he got his keys and left in his car. I looked at Phil and asked him if he could talk to the girl in the blue dress. Me and Phil sat on the opposite sides of the board. I was shitting myself, but also excited. There was a little girl that I used to know, but I don't see her much anymore. She used to wear a blue dress and have blonde hair. Would it be possible to speak to her again? The planchette immediately moved to no. It was almost too fast. Since I was sitting across from yes and no, Phil looked at me and told me if I didn't want to speak to her, we can stop. I told him I didn't move it. He shrugged his shoulders, and without saying anything, the planchette moved rapidly across the board, spelling out Friend. Phil looked confused. "Who are we speaking to?" Amande. Hello, Amanda. Who were you in life? Dress. Are you the girl in the blue dress? It moved to yes on the board. Why do you not want to talk to us? Friend. He looked at me. I was absorbed in absolute enormity of the situation. I asked out loud if she did not want to talk to me. It moved to yes. Why do you not want to talk to me? Hateme. I don't know whether to feel foolish or not. She thought I would not like her. Your friend Phil tells me you're very likable. Why do you think I'll hate you? HauntYou. I stared at the board completely frozen. The only thing that moved was my arm and the planchette spelled out. DIE. Phil slapped my hand off the thing, and at that instant, he shoved the whole board back into his packaging. A sense of dread washed over me, as I think I knew my next question. What the fuck does that mean? He told me not to worry about it, and that we should go back to the pub. For the rest of the night, the way he looked at me as if he knew I had done something very, very wrong. The way he looked at me was if he knew he had done something very, very fucking bad to me. Our trip to Bustleton ended and we went back to Cathara. I didn't speak about what happened that night. That changed a week later, when one day at work, Phil called in sick. Then he asked our boss if he could speak to me. When I picked up the phone, he was breathing very heavily into the receiver. My manager turned to me and told me to tell him to go to the hospital, because he wouldn't listen to her when she said it. I told him he sounded like he was dying, and he should probably go see a doctor. He said to me, she was back, and she was fucking pissed off. I wanted to tell him to fuck off and stop messing with my fucking head. I asked him what the hell he was talking about, even though I already knew. He said she came to him in his dreams last night and told him he should not have told me about her, and that she was mad as hell. It was only supposed to be me and her, dude. That's what she said to me. I don't know what she's going to do. That night, I woke up to find her standing at the end of my bed, the blue dress illuminating the darkness. My hand flung to my lamp and she disappeared with a light. I didn't sleep for the rest of that night. The next night, I slept with my lamp on. She screamed at me in my dreams. She called me unnatural, said that I was not supposed to know of her existence. I woke up to find that only light was coming from my TV, which was running static. The third night, I had my room light on, and in my dreams, she told me that the light does nothing. It was pitch black when I woke up. The only way I could avoid her was staying awake. One night, I dozed off my computer and woke up to find a notepad up. There were 5 words that had been written there. I died in my sleep. Roughly 2 weeks ago, I told my parents what was going on, not giving a shit what they will think of it. I was at that point where I needed help to handle my situation. They told me that I'm still growing up and that I was going to experience some weird things when I'm growing up. I told them I'm fucking 18 and I'm not imagining shit. They said they'll do something about it the next day. I went to work 4 hours late the next day, or that day. It was the first time I'd been in for a week. And the first time I saw Phil since he talked to me on the phone. I saw him in the staff car parking lot, where he was getting something from his car. I went up to him and slugged him in the face, then kicked him while he was on the ground. I was arrested for assault by the police on the scene, but Phil dropped the charges, and later that day, he called me up and told me he was sorry for what he did. I asked him how bad it could get, and he said he didn't know. I traveled to Perth to go see a psychiatrist, and he gave me these pills that would make me giddy and sleepy. That night, in my dreams, she tore off her dress and stood naked in front of me, and told me to fuck her. I said no. I woke up with my dick burning, red as a fucking tomato. It was the worst pain I felt in my entire life. I saw her in the mirror behind me after I had a shower one day. Her jaw was missing from where her father had shot it off, and her sockets were empty from where he ripped her eyes out. The pills made me sleep, and while I slept, she would taunt me with her demonic voice, somehow conveying her words with a flapping tongue sound against her throat and upper jaw. She told me I was not made to see her. 5 days ago, I smashed my head into my mirror because she was staring back at me. 2 days later, I woke up in the hospital to see her standing next to me. I fought back to scream and asked her what I could do to make her happy. She told me to die. I woke up the whole ward with my mangle screaming, and the doctors found me with my dislocated jaw. I was released from the hospital yesterday. I plan to see someone that specializes in paranormal department. It's getting too much for me to handle. Phil can't help me, and his demon is now mine. My intention of telling my story now is to let people know the dangers of fucking around with stuff they should not never be fucking around with. And it is especially hard to do that while I sit here at my laptop, unable to speak or scream as she stands next to me and laughs her disgusting laugh. All I can hear is a slap of her tongue against her throat. She told me to not tell you guys that. Okay, so that was the girl in the blue dress. That part when she appears in the guy's dreams, I was not expecting that. But yeah, that was the whole story. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the girl in the blue dress. I don't know when this video is gonna be releasing. Probably before the week of Halloween or on the same week as Halloween. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, or at least thank you guys so much for listening. That was a story of all time, more or less. And yeah, hopefully I got the words correct for the places in Australia. I'm not from Australia. But yeah, if you enjoyed, please leave a like and consider subscribing. It does help out the channel and it is free. And yeah, I don't have anything else to say. Use code GOONS at gamersubs.gg for 10% off at checkout. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. You'll see some stuff pop up on screen. Click the stuff on the left. You'll see a playlist that has 100 creepypastas in there. So go check them out. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, everyone.